And welcome to another Pro Audio Suite, thanks to TriBooth. Don't forget the code TRIPAP200. That will get you $200 off your TriBooth and Austrian Audio, making passion heard.
5, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional, they're motivated.
With Tech to the VO stars, George Whittam, founder of Source Elements, Robert Marshall, international audio engineer, Darren Robbo Robertson, and global voice, Andrew Peters. Thanks to TriBooth, Austrian Audio, making passion heard, Source Elements, George the Tech Whittam, and Robbo and AP's international demos. To find out more about us, check the ProAudioSuite.com.
Line up, ladies!
Here we go.
And welcome to part 2 of our interview with Derek from Vanguard.
I have a question. So my observation of ribbon mics, for example, is that they're often very dark, but they take to EQ so well. You can EQ them, and they tend to react better than other mics that when you're trying to EQ them.
All the frequencies are there in a ribbon mic.
I don't know why it is. Like,
Right?
why is it that ribbon mics seem to react better to EQ?
I don't have an answer for you there. I'd have to think about it. I don't have one off the top of my head that would satisfy you. I'd never thought about that before. And I'd have to really sit and think about the science of it. I'd have to think about it.
I think it's because there's less EQing and less, like, a ribbon mic is sort of like a ribbon to a transformer, like mic transformer ribbon. And there you go. There's far less electronics going on.
There are. I will say this too for ribbons. Condenser mics tend to be like, we see those smooth EQ curves on the manufacturer website. Those are all horse crap. Some of them are actually, I know of one company early on that just literally hand drew them, just pulled them out of their ass and said, this is what our mic sounds like.
Marshall? Was it Marshall
No,
Electronic?
I won't say their name, but it was a really ridiculous thing. And I'm like, come on, guys. But a lot of those are smoothed by an octave or a third of an octave, and that makes them even less useful at an octave. But if you go look at the frequency responses on Audio Test Kitchen where they do a tenth of an octave, and then you go compare it to the manufacturer where they're doing a third of an octave, they're much peakier than you'd think. And I think particularly with K67 style capsules, which tend to be peaky in the sibilance area, that means that we call it not taking EQLs, because when you boost that, you're boosting these peaks that are obnoxious to begin with. That's my first guess. I can't give you a scientific answer to it, though. I've never really thought about it, but that's just like me.
I'm going to roll with that.
Spitballing.
That's the closest thing to an explanation I've gotten compared to just, it seems like you can EQ a ribbon mic and get much more pleasing results. And you can't,
but God forbid your voiceover guys use ribbon mics, because George would be sending a lot of them off for repair.
And there's noise issues and gain issues, but
the gain issues,
like you can warp a ribbon mic to do what you want as long as you're willing to deal with some of the noise issues of all the gain and things you're doing to it. But with a condenser mic, you're much better off like kind of leaving it alone and saying, let's switch the mic out. Let's try to adjust the position.
Placement, as George pointed out,
exactly,
placement
the position.
The polar pattern does change the EQ of the mic, not just the low frequencies, but the mids and the highs as well. People don't appreciate that.
Yeah, I really love experimenting and not just landing on cardioid, because that's the natural tendency is to land on cardioid. But please,
I like figure eight.
Yeah, please experiment. Like if you're in a small space and you would normally not think a figure eight makes sense, try it out. You might be shocked sometimes how
if you're like me and you have a weak low frequency,
you get better proximity
content to your voice. But with Scott Rummel, to get his to sound like it wasn't thunder in the microphone, we had to go to wide cardioid.
Because all the way out at Omni, you don't have really any proximity.
So in wide cardioid, you're lessening it.
Right.
Well, but another thing I do is
also with
when
the figure eight, you can place it better and you can play the nulls in the room. You can really kind of.
When you were mentioning how certain capsules can have sibilant spikes in them, the first thing everybody is saying is, "Can you de-ess this? Can you de-ess this?" And I don't reach for a de-esser first. I always reach for a filter, a parametric EQ, so I can zoom in on that spike and just notch it out a little bit, and then it's just beautiful after that.
Yeah.
7 kilohertz, where my brother chipped my tooth when I was a kid. 7 kilohertz. I wish I was kidding, but I'm not.
Yeah.
It's funny, we talked about the figure eight. I remember I was experimenting using figure eight as well. And I thought it sounded fantastic until one day I actually went to cardioid and then realized how much bottom end there was in figure eight.
Yeah.
Well, and you've got that heavy voice too, so that figure eight was just, I mean, especially if you were riding it up close.
Yeah, I was going to say the figure eight lets you be farther away because it's going to reach out more. And so,
and for the audience, don't judge my mics on how they sound when they're pointing to the left of me in a drywall box. Go listen to them in your studio before you make a judgment.
Well, get up nice and close on for us. Come on, get up nice and close.
This is Derek Bargaehr with Vanguard Audio Labs. I don't know why I had to go sexy, but I did.
No, you sound like
on figure eight on
like
this,
an NPR bit from SNL. Yeah.
Doing the what is the classical
the
station? The KUS. This is KUSC. We will be playing.
Yeah.
Dvorak's Fifth Symphony. You know. Robbo, you've been dying to ask me a question. We keep stepping on your toes.
It's gone out of my head now. It's actually no. That was going to be it. If you it was a completely personal one. But if let's take Andrew for example. If you had to pick the perfect mic out of your range to suit Andrew, where would you go?
That was going to be a question I was going to ask as well.
Oh, geez. I mean, I have a hard time saying not the V13, and here's why. The polar patterns with the roll-off and the pad make it pretty versatile on voices. It's flattering enough. The only downside to that is it's a tube mic, so that you have to set, if you're taking it places, you got to set up the power supply and blah, blah, blah. It's one more thing that can go wrong when voiceover auditions. I mean, I've been in the room when they're like, oh yeah, we got this email. We got to put this out in 30 seconds. We got to do the read and go and run it into Twisted Wave and send it out. So that's one more thing. If you have to turn on the tube, the power supply and wait for it to heat up, or God forbid you can't figure out why your mic's not working, is because the power supply cable came out of the wall. Don't ask me how many mics I've been trying to take apart after I built them and it's not working, and the problem was an IEC cable that came loose out of the wall socket or something like that. I'd say the V13 would be a good. I mean, I'd love to say the V14. Just I'd love for you to give me $5,000, but that's American $5,000. I'm not taking.
I think Andrew's next question is, what sort of discount are you going to give me? So just be careful what you say.
Andrew wants to pay an Australian $5,000.
That's right, 5,000 Australian pesos.
I'll take it over Canadian 5,000 now.
I'll give you a tip, mate. If you want to make a sale, just give Andrew a tip. Just give Andrew a hint of a bargain, and you've probably made the sale because he can't help himself. He just can't help himself.
I know.
This magical cable tie that comes with the microphone.
Yeah.
I'll throw it in.
AP has bad gas. Gas.
I mean, picking mics for voices is tricky, but I think that. A really good one I heard, and I don't remember which engineer said it, is if you're micing a source, take a mic that sounds like the opposite of that source. If you got a really bright source, put a darker ribbon on it, or put a U67 or a V13. If you've got a source that's nasally like mine, you do not want a mic that has those nasally 500 to 1,000 to 1.5 like those.
You know that's really funny about that though, because the whole thing about the U87. Everybody U87, you've got to have a U87 if you voiceover U87. In Australia, we have a nasally tone to our accent.
So your accent, yeah.
So you put a U87 on someone in Australia, it emphasizes the nasal.
Well, maybe that's what you want if you're playing, Crocodile Dundee.
That's right. That's not
if you're hamming it up,
Yeah. That's not a mic. This is a mic.
Yeah. Do you make any small diaphragm mics, or is it all LDCs?
I do, actually. This one back here. I don't have it hooked up. It was hooked up to the Evo 8.
Oh, I thought that was a ribbon.
Now it's not. Oh. No, this is a small diaphragm with a large diaphragm attachment called the Lolly.
Okay.
So this takes your this.
It's a small diaphragm preamp body.
Well, listen, do me a favor.
Body.
Yeah. Do me a favor. Let's play some on hold music on the episode here, and can you plug that sucker in real quick? Because I'd love to hear it.
All right, you guys are probably gonna get a pop here.
There we go. Be careful, George. That's how kids are made.
It's a popping bass that we have. That's what it is.
Oh yeah! Ow!
Obviously, this has to get edited out because it will get slammed.
Yeah, I'll change it for some lift music. There we go. He's back.
There we go.
I don't know how back am I.
you go back.
These take a little while to charge up because of the circuit. It's a charge amplifier design. There we go.
It's got more heat to it. You can back the gain, I think, down just a bit.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, I just bumped the mic stand because I'm good at this.
There you go.
Yeah, so this is, let me do this. Which one's blue? This is the large.
And what's the other one? You have the actual small diaphragm pointing straight at you, and then the side address.
So there's the large diaphragm I'm talking into right now, and it has a lot of proximity effect. Actually, this is in cardioid, but it also switches to omni if you so desire. And then the other one that I'm going to turn up right here, and it's probably going to be a little quieter. Just because of the smaller diaphragm. This is the SDC. So it comes with 4 capsules standard. It comes with an omni, hypercardioid, cardioid, and wide cardioid that all you just screw on and take off. I wish I had left the case out to show you guys, but I did not think that far ahead because that sounds like me, doesn't it? This is just the cardioid on there. But we just came out with the Gen 2. The Lolly Gen 2 is not out yet, unfortunately. We had a break-in in 2021 where they stole like 250 units of metalwork for the Lolly. And I have yet to recover from that.
What are they going to do with that?
Good is that?
I think they broke in. They smashed and grabbed. They grabbed everything they could off the shelf. So they grabbed like 200 shock mounts. They grabbed a bunch of stuff that wasn't finished and then tried to sell it on Mercari. That didn't go well for them.
Ooh, yeah.
What's Mercari? I don't even know what that is.
It's OfferUp light, that sort of thing. But yeah, they were selling them, and then people would buy a mic for like $75 and then be like, they'd email me like, "Hey, I bought this mic used. It's not working." I'm like, "What's the serial number?" Because it wasn't a completed microphone. That's why. Because we do our assembly in the States. So like those mics may not have had PCBs, or maybe it didn't have certain components in them, or all sorts of things where the mics weren't completed yet. They only stole like 5 completed microphones. But anyways, the Lolly Gen 2 is not out yet, but the V1 Gen 2 is, and it comes with the 4. And we also did them in black, actually, because that was the most requested feature. People are like, "I want to use this on stage." We had a national orchestra in Europe saying, "I want to buy 60 of these, but we can't have them because they're too shiny, and these are all televised."
Well, that's what electrical tape is for.
Electrical taping the entire mic. No more resonance in that mic body. But yeah, this is the small diaphragms that I'm talking into now. This is the cardioid capsule, I think.
Do you have filters and pads on the small diaphragm?
No,
or is it just straight mic?
No. Not to get too nerdy, if you put a screw-in pad, you have to have active electronics in that, and that's going to mess with the signal. And if you do a pad switch, I looked for a while to try and find a pad switch that did not affect the signal negatively, and I did not find one for this microphone because it's so small, and you have to put a slide switch in there, and the contacts just were not good enough. You're in the high Z section for that, by the way. You're in the high impedance section. So
you're in the very
low it's a negative feedback.
Yeah.
Well, for the artists, while we're talking about it, because we've got Andrew over here on a small diaphragm mic, and obviously sounds pretty good, and 416 small diaphragm. So, how does an artist decide if they really truly need a large diaphragm capsule mic versus a medium or small diaphragm?
The large diaphragm will be lower noise typically. That's one thing.
Yes, that is true. However, I will say this. I tell people, and I'm a mic guy, it is in my interest to sell you more microphones. So when I say this, it is important that you understand that it's me saying it. A lot of the times, the best mic for the job is the one you already have, and you don't know it yet. There are exceptions to that. Like, let's say you only have a 41.6 or a 416, right?
41.6.
And you have to do an audiobook. And that means that you have to sit like this for hours at a time and not move a single centimeter, because if you do, everything's going to go to hell. And apologies if there were plosives on that. Small diaphragms can be more susceptible to plosives, especially when they're designed well like this, where the diaphragm breathes, because it is 1 millimeter from that grill cloth there.
Wow.
And that means that there is nowhere for that air to go but into the diaphragm. So they have plosives much easier. I'm not sure if you've experienced that with your OC8 there.
With the CC8, this one, absolutely. That's why I was saying you've got to be that's why I've got the phone.
All small diaphragm condensers generally, like with a large diaphragm, when you think about this mic that I was using earlier, I'm just going to unplug it real quick. Think about how much distance there is between the grill here and the capsule. That's probably conservatively 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch.
Yeah.
And then the
this is a millimeter.
What's the rule? The root square, like when
RMS, the root mean square.
Yeah, when you go like twice as far away is 4 times less signal.
There you go again, Robert. You just have to geek out, don't you?
I do.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm with Robert on this one. But really, the bottom line is, so with a 416, reading a narration, one, the sound is going to maybe not be what you're looking for, the tonal qualities of a 416 or 41.6. Apologies, Robbo. But two, just the fact that you have to sit in the same spot every time and not move an inch while you're reading copy and turning pages and whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get a mic that can do this, let me just turn this over here, and I can go to a cardioid mic where I can, or a wide cardioid where I can get a little further around it, and I can move, and it doesn't affect the audio quality as much. Because I'll tell you right now, I'm listening to an audiobook, and there are times where you hear in between sentences where they've clearly cut something in after the fact, like, oh, we need to reread this because you biffed a word or whatever, and it's jarring. It takes me out of the audiobook.
Totally.
You know, and that's like, I'm an audio guy, so I would notice that, but even my wife goes, that was weird.
What's going on? Yeah.
It takes her out of it, and she is as far from an audio, but she doesn't want to deal with my.
It's like ADR for audiobooks.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that it's really important to think about, like, ultimately mics are paintbrushes, right? Like if you're Bob Ross, you're not using your 2-inch brush to sign it, or, you know, do your tree trunks. You're not using your liner brush for the happy little clouds, right? You've got different brushes for different things. And ultimately these are tools, and you have to treat them as, what is this tool good at? Now, that being said, you know, if you want an all-around mic, I would say go with either a large diaphragm or a small diaphragm that has a wider pickup pattern than like a 416 or a 41.6.
Yeah.
Apologies. I'm never going to get used to saying that. Why are we saying 41.6?
Because we're going to change the world.
Because we when we first started this program, we had 416 that we call it here in Australia, and you guys call it the what?
416.
So we decided we'd find some middle ground and create our own name. So the 41.6
it's the 41.6
and now when I freelance, I walk into the studio and I'll say, "Is there a 41.6 around somewhere?" And they'll look at me and go, "What?"
That's like the guy asking
for 416. Yeah.
Can you give me the Newman U87?
Yeah.
It's like, get him away from the console now. Yeah. The Newman. Newman was a guy on Seinfeld.
Yeah, I was going to say
Newman. Yeah.
Imagine when he turned 67.
Sorry?
When Newman on Seinfeld turned 67. That would have been funny.
There you go.
Oh, they missed a really niche audio joke opportunity.
Yeah.
Exactly 3 people would have got that.
All right, so I'm going to bring it back into nerddom.
I was just going to say, just quickly, just while we're on Derek's point, sorry, George, but just while we're on that point about microphones, I was going to say, though, there are microphones that sort of give you that sort of quality that you're talking about, that hype top end, like the 41.6, like the
NT1.
The NT1 or the OC 16.
Yeah.
Both sort of have that hype at the top end, but being large capsules sort of give you that luxury of, as you say, being able to sort of move around a little bit. So there are alternatives.
It's funny though. I was at Scott Rummel's. The first time I got introduced to voiceover as like a market for microphones was Scott Rummel. I met him at NAMM, and he's like, "I've been looking for a new microphone to do narration on, and I have a 416, and I was wondering if you had anything." And he lived not that far from me at the time. He was in Yorba Linda. I was in Upland. It was an easy drive for me. So I took down 2 mics to him, and we sat there for the day and we played with the V13, and I got to listen to Scott Rummel do Scott Rummel things. Mm-hmm. And so he had it running into an Avalon, what is this?
737.
737, yeah. 767's a airline thing. But he had it running into the Avalon that has an EQ and stuff like that. And so we were playing around with it, and he was like, "I love this for narration. I love the setting you've got for that. Can we make this sound like a 416 just for fun?" So we started playing with the EQ, and we started playing with the polar pattern. We got really close. And then his agent calls, and he's like, "Hey man, you're reading, what is it? Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets," or it was a sci-fi movie from back in the day. It's like, "You're doing the read for this. You're on in like a minute." And I panic and I grab his 416. I'm trying to, because he only has 1 input, right?
At that time.
And I'm trying to put everything back together. He goes, no, let's just see if they notice.
And they didn't.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, And so he gets on. They're like, Scott, are you doing something different today? You sound really good. And he looks at me and he goes, no. And so he does the read, Valerian, doing like 6 different takes of it or whatever. And 5 minutes later, he's probably several $1,000s richer because that's the way it works, and it's amazing. Then like a month later, I'm watching Hulu, and that comes on. I'm like, oh shit, that's my microphone. That's cool.
That's unreal. That's the sort of stuff you want to put up on your website, right? That's insane.
Yeah, I think I have actually.
Yeah, as you should.
Oh, and I'm clipping here. Apologies. I'm gonna
it just reminds me of one of our first episodes, and we did a shootout, and we were all blown away when the NT1, not the NT1A, but the NT1, I believe, was the closest to the 41.6, and we were just like, how could that be? There's no farther apart as far as construction and design and everything. But they really did sound close.
Yeah, that was so bizarre. We had, I think, I just brought all of my mics out and lined them up. I think we had 11.
And it sounds like it's a considerable collection.
About 11 or 12, I think.
Don't start him. Seriously, we'll be here for another hour. Yeah.
So here's my question that I had. Josephson, I don't know if you're familiar with them as a company. And I think also the new Sony, and you don't see a lot of mics that do this, but they take a large diaphragm and a small diaphragm and they put them in one and they blend them electronically. And I was wondering, what's your thought on that? What are the pitfalls of that? I imagine there's some phase issues at least, but...
In theory, there could be phase issues. Unless you're up in so close, there's probably in frequency domain that it doesn't matter, right? So like my stereo mic, for instance, I don't have the stereo mic with me, but you can see 2 large diaphragms sitting this, right? Yeah. And so are other stereo mics, and they're still phase coincident where it matters in the frequency domain that humans hear, unless you're recording from half an inch away, in which case, what are you doing with a stereo mic?
Right.
Okay.
Half an inch away from your,
Because now it's like a distant, now it's a factor of the source, right?
Exactly, right? So it's a factor of the source distance. So I think it's smart in a number of ways. Obviously, you have to think about how they're blending it, whether they're on separate circuits that they're then blending it in, or whether they're just doing it additively in the high impedance section, because that can cause... I mean, they've thought about this. They've thought about capacitance problems and things like that. But all that being said, I don't think it's a bad idea. I wish I had it here. I had a prototype at one point that I 3D printed that was a 67, a 47, and a CK12 style capsule, all in one...
head basket.
Big basket.
I 3D printed a mount, and you could, in theory, the idea was I was going to put 3 circuits in the mic and have you be able to blend between them with a blend pot. Wow. It didn't work out for a number of reasons, not the least of which it looked like a pickleball racket when you put it together. But yeah, it was just something I tried because I was kind of inspired by a similar... I don't remember who does this. I think it might have been Audio-Technica where they had 4 rectangular capsules.
Yeah, it's Audio-Technica's got four. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and there's advantages and disadvantages to all that. Like all of its balance ultimately. And I think the bottom line is it musical? Does it serve the artist? Does it serve what they're doing? And if you lose sight of that, then why? I mean, you're either in it for the money or your ego or what have you. And I think it's more fun to be supporting artists and what they do. Like I just make paintbrushes. Ultimately they're fancy, expensive, sexy looking paintbrushes.
So which one is the Bob Ross spatula?
The palette knife.
Yeah,
he was rather versatile with the palette knife, wasn't he?
It's like a carbon mic or something.
I don't know. I'd have to really. If I had to sit down and put a microphone on all of that, seems like a meme that I need to do, a Bob Ross microphone project. But yeah, I'd have to think about that. But yeah, I think that they're tools ultimately, and like we do obsess over our tools as artists. And sometimes I think to our detriment, I think we lose the forest through the trees. And going back to what George said, like ultimately, if you've got to really turn in a really great voiceover performance on your iPhone mic for this, cartoon character audition, they can put a better mic in front of you. They can't turn you into a better VO artist necessarily easily, So it's, I think it's really easy to do what I did when I was in junior high and high school and focus on the tools and not the instrument. Now it put me here, which may or may not be a good thing. Depending on the day you ask me, I'll say whether it's a good thing or not. But ultimately, it's a tool, and the art comes first. And if this tool isn't serving the art, that's when you go buy a new tool.
Yeah. Well,
or if you've got a lot of money and you want to support a boutique manufacturer.
Speaking of new tools, before your natural daylight fades into darkness, and I can tell it's getting darker in your room.
We've been on podcasts that this has happened. We're like, wow,
and he has to go in a minute. So George, you got a question.
So new mics, are there any coming? Not that you haven't had enough to do already.
Yes, I'm coming out with a very limited quantity of a small diaphragm tube mic at the request of one of my buddies. I was going to build a pair for him, and I was like, I'll build like 10 pairs and see if they sell.
Like a tiny tube, like a new Vista.
The not a new Vista. I've actually got them over there. The sub miniature tubes. So that's the only way you can do them pretty much in an SDC, unless it's a small diaphragm capsule and a big chunky body. I'm doing that. I've got some other ideas that may or may not come to daylight. I've developed projects that never go anywhere because I'm like, ultimately this doesn't do what we need it to do or what the artist needs it to do. So you go back to the drawing board and you try again, or maybe you let that pot cook a little longer and you come back to it. I've got the V7 is another one. I'm sure you saw it at NAMM a couple times because we were going to release it and we never did. It's a 9-pattern FET mic with the pattern selectable on the front of the mic, and then it also has swappable capsules. So you were able to swap out if you want a K67 or a U47 or K47
that's
or whatever.
That's like the
capsule.
Corby system, right? Corby did this.
Yes. Yeah. But without dealing with the difficulties that was dealing with Tracy Corby sometimes. So, and then another company does it now. Actually, Luke Audio does a swappable bayonet system that I understand is a pretty good one too.
And the blue bottle is coming back with a new name and a new
Are they really resurrecting the Pro Audio line?
Mannheim Microphones. Yeah, I talked to the guy.
Yeah, after Blue dirtied their name with the freaking Yeti.
Yeah, I talked to the guy. I talked to the guy. He had a mock-up of the body, and he was like, "We're starting over, and I'm going to be." Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, they sold it to Logitech, right? So Blue isn't Blue
on
anymore.
The strength of the USB mics, and then Logitech said, "What do we need this Pro Audio stuff for?"
Yeah, but they really kind of crapped on that name. I thought it was sad because Blue had some wonderful mics.
They crapped on the name to the tune of $192 million when they sold it to Logitech. Everybody has a price, dude.
True.
Bring on the
that sounds like my price.
I'm gonna pay.
What do you know?
I'm gonna pay you $250 million or $500 million for you to design a USB mic that's gonna be in Apple stores. I'd be like, okay.
Well, I mean, the genius of Blue was the Yeti. The Yeti, as bad as it was,
the Yeti and the Snowball, man.
Yeah. Marketing gold.
Sorry to bring up those names, but it came up.
No, man. It's like people needed USB. They designed something that somebody who was not an audio person at all that wanted to start a podcast could use, get a decent sound in a drywall box. And, this is, if you have 2 people, you put it right here in between them, and this is figure 8. And if you have a bunch of people, you put it in Omni. Like they dumbed it down for people, and they also made it darn near indestructible because that thing, if you ever picked up a Yeti with like the cast iron base on it, that thing could have been a weapon in the board game Clue. Exactly. Like it was Colonel Mustard in the conservatory with the Yeti
in the studio.
With the Yeti in the kitchen.
That thing was so heavy. It was so heavy.
So never a USB mic from Vanguard, or
probably not, but never say never. If you have $192 million, you've got to kick around. I'll try one.
Just let Derek know the right price. Just let him know. Yeah. He'll have it made tomorrow.
We have some other ideas too, and it's I think my biggest thing right now is I've been looking, and George, you know about this. I've talked to you about this. Ken died in March, rather unexpectedly, and we are both engineers, and engineers running companies doesn't go so well. So I've been looking for a new business partner to come in and run the business side of it because it's no fun to do accounting when I could be designing microphones, or it's no fun to be doing vendor management when I could be doing microphones. So that's been my primary concern for the last 9 months or so, is trying to find the right person to join up with and continue this. So that, ultimately, not to get all maudlin.
This is a call for resumes, by the way.
Pro Audio Suite has gone hardware. Exactly. We've got the VO Passport out, and I'm not sure, but we might need a line of microphones to really...
I was going to say, once we've made our millions...
a little bit about the ideas for VO mics, and it's on my list, George.
Once Michael pays us our millions for the passport, we'll be in touch, mate. Right. We might be buying in.
But it is, if anybody's interested in partnering in a microphone company and has the right qualifications and listens to Pro Audio Suite, that is a narrow Venn diagram, man.
Hey.
That Venn diagram looks like Madonna's boobs.
I'm sorry, mate, but my mum hasn't got that sort of money, mate. I'm sorry. Just
all the way out here.
So listen, you've got to bail, but before you do, because I know you've got a hard out. Before you do, if I want to buy a Vanguard mic, come on, do the sell. This is your sales hat moment, mate.
So if you like stupid industry, niche audio memes, and also looking at microphones, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. It's Vanguard Audio Labs for both of them. I'm not on X or Twitter because it was a tire fire before it became X. I also, to buy the microphones, we do sell direct in the United States as well as have dealers. So you can go to shop.vanguardaudioLabs.com if you want to feed our foster dogs. That's a great way to do it. You can also go to Vintage King and Pro Audio Star and Guitar Center / Musician's Friend and a number of other retailers. If you're interested in supporting your local retailer, I don't mind that either. If you just go to our website and click Find a Dealer, if you're in Australia or wherever else these other guys are, then you can go to Find a Dealer, and we're distributed in 78 countries, I believe. So
wow.
You should be able to find us.
Yeah,
theoretically.
I think so.
And where are you right now?
I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Philly. George is gonna get a warm.
Yeah, me and George have talked about this. Go Birds and all
we'll
that.
Definitely hook up next time I'm visiting that area.
So wait, isn't Peluso also in that area?
I think he's somewhere.
Virginia.
I think he's in Virginia.
Yep. Virginia, near my old alma mater, near Virginia Tech, actually.
Yeah, he's down Alexandria way, if I'm not mistaken.
But if you do mic repairs, I will be contacting you because I have.
Yes, I do lots of mic repairs.
I have some 87s that have mysteriously low gain. Don't know why.
AD7s. Who made those?
87s, like
87s. Oh, I thought you said AD as in
I think that means it's time to let Derek go.
Yes, 87s low gain. That's an easy fix. I can help you with that. Awesome. Are they original 87s or AIs?
They're originals. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I do 3 of those a month.
And that would be capacitors, I reckon.
Tantalum capacitors or the FET bias.
Yeah.
The FET bias. I rebias almost everyone that comes in.
Yeah.
These were reworked by Ben.
Can you say fat bias these days? Isn't that like shaming? Name shaming?
Yeah,
seriously.
you can't do that.
I know that in you're in Australia, right, Robbo?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I know that the A and the E are kind of an interchangeable thing for your accent, but it's the FET, field effect transistor. Now tell me no and add 16 R's to the end of it.
No. There you go.
No.
And he never sold another microphone in Australia again.
See, mate, what you would hear from an Aussie is me microphone's farked. Can you fix it for me?
You said all those R's that the British got rid of. You're like, we'll take all of them.
That's
we'll just take all of them and bring them here.
Yeah.
I'm yet to hear someone do a good Aussie accent who's not an Aussie. I'll
tell you my operations manager, Curtis.
I'm yet to hear
someone he grew up around Australians, and he nails it. I gotta say.
Get him to send me a file because I'd love to hear it. Absolutely.
Yeah. I will do that.
All you got to remember with the Australian accent is gather the R's and drop the T's.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite, with thanks to Tribooth and Austrian Audio, recorded using Source Connect, edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Voodoo Radio Imaging with tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, theproaudiosuite.com.